Dear students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Kanika Ahuja, Associate Professor, Department of Psychology, Lady Shri Ram College of Women from Delhi University. This particular module is called Gender-Related Crime. Every crime has a victim and a perpetrator. If you close your eyes and imagine a victim, chances are that you would have imagined a suffering female and the perpetrator as a cruel male. While you are not wrong, the reverse cannot be ignored completely. Statistics do show that males are offenders greater number of times than females. The FBI arrest statistics from the US Department of Justice in 1990 for men and women showed arrest rates per 1 lakh population with 9,211 male offenders to only 2,122 female offenders. The rate, intensity, seriousness, and extent of violence differ in men and women. In this module, we shall explore gender and crime. The learning outcomes of this module are: at the end of this module, you are expected to understand gender differences in crime, differentiate types of gender-related violence, become aware of violence practiced against men, analyze reasons behind gender-related crime, and explain measures to reduce gender-related crime. Let us start by looking at the perpetrators. Are men and women equally likely to be perpetrators of a crime? It depends. For serious crimes like robbery or murder, men are more likely to be the perpetrator. However, for minor crimes like property and substance abuse offences, men and women are equally likely to commit the crime. The acts of violence by women, however, cause less serious injuries. Their property crimes involve less monetary loss or property damage. There are fewer chances of women becoming repeat offenders as compared to men in drug offences, shoplifting, or check forging. Also, men are more frequent and chronic offenders once they commit a crime. Let us now look at the causes of crime across both genders. Male and female crime tends to be associated with similar reasons such as: first, low socioeconomic status, poor education, under or unemployment, belonging to minority groups. These are common causes of crime for both men and women. Second, among female offenders, increased presence of dependent children is found as compared to male offenders. And third, female crime tends to be more visible in urban cities with increased economic inequality, poverty, and higher gender inequality. Let us now turn our attention to the victims. It seems safe to assume that more women than men are the victims of crime. Gender-related crimes are practiced in the form of cruelty against adult women, minors, and even a female embryo, since the birth of a female child is considered by itself a curse in patriarchal countries like India. Violence becomes a legitimate tool for men to assert their power over women's lives, a legitimate tool to keep women under control and enforce compliance. Dowry deaths, suicide are common consequences of such torture that women face irrespective of their caste, class, region, or religion. Such crimes, however, are not unique to developing countries. In fact, they cut across regional, social, cultural, and economic spaces and are found in the so-called developed countries as well. You would have heard of battering by husbands or partners, domestic assault, homicide by spouses or lovers, harassment at workplaces, sexist jokes, obscene behavior with sexual overtures, direct advances, molestation, rapes, physical, emotional, and sexual abuse. These are all examples of crimes that make the world unsafe for women. It cannot be denied, however, that the man may be the victim too. The Supreme Court of India recently took cognizance of the fact that the conviction rate of cases registered under Section 498A of IPC is just 15.6%. It ruled that no arrest in dowry cases should be made till charges are verified by special police officers and district family welfare committees. Acknowledging a growing trend among women involved in marital discord to abuse the law, Justice Goyal and Justice Lalit said that it was high time such frivolous cases were checked. According to a Times of India report dated 28 July 2017, and I quote, "This is a shift from the dominant judicial conception of women as victims who would silently suffer injustice rather than bringing disrepute to their family by taking domestic conflicts outside the four walls of the home." Unquote. Let me now share some interesting facts with you. First, do you know 1 in 3 women have experienced physical or sexual violence at some point in their lives? Second, in most countries, less than 40% of women who experienced violence sought help of any sort. Of these, less than 10% sought help from the police. Third, 44 countries have laws against marital violence. Fourth, only 17 countries consider marital rape a criminal offence. Fifth, 27 countries have passed laws against sexual harassment. Sixth, once upon a time, XYY chromosomal disorder and high testosterone levels were used as a legal defense to explain criminal conduct in males. And seventh, criminal behavior shown by females was once explained with the help of menstrual symptoms and hormonal fluctuations. Let us now turn our attention to the various forms of crime perpetrated against women. First, domestic violence. The APA Task Force on Violence and Family defines domestic violence as, and I quote, patterns of abusive behavior including physical, sexual, and psychological maltreatment used by one person in an intimate relationship against another to gain power unfairly or maintain that person's misuse of power, control, and authority. Unquote. Apple and Holden provide different types of models to analyze violence within families. First, the single perpetrator model. Here the man beats the woman and the child. Sequential perpetrator model. The man beats the woman who then beats the child. Dual perpetrator model. Man beats the woman and the woman also beats the child. Marital violence model. Woman and man beat each other and both beat the child. Family dysfunction model. All 3 family members beat each other, including the child who beats the adult perpetrators. Most researchers, however, use the term domestic violence to address the battering of women by their partners. Believed to be caused due to early exposure to using violence in childhood, it has been observed that the batterers continue to harass, stalk, and harm the woman even after she has left her partner. Do you remember the Priyadarshini Mattu case, a historic case in Indian legal system which brought recognition for a new crime, stalking? That's the second crime we will talk about. Priyadarshini was 25 years old law student of Delhi University. She was raped and murdered in her own house. During her LLB course, she was harassed and intimidated by Santosh Kumar, the key accused who was himself a law pass-out from the same place. Priyadarshini had filed repeated complaints against Santosh for stalking her 1 year before she died. In 1996, the accused entered her flat in Vasant Kunj when she was alone, raped and strangled her with a brutal electric wire, battering her face with a motorcycle helmet. So what is stalking? Stalking refers to predatory behavior characterized by repeated patterns of harassment by an individual to a degree which may frighten her that she would be the victim of violence. Majority of the victims of stalking are females, but there are reported instances of males being stalked as well. At times the stalkers may be strangers, but usually they are people known to the female. They could be a past husband, a partner, a person with whom one had had a brief sexual relationship, and so on. People who experience stalking report that during their relationship, their partner discouraged them from maintaining relationships with their friends and relatives, demanded sex, and often humiliated them in the presence of other people. Stalking methods include following, unsolicited telephone calls or letters, spying, like standing outside college, home, or office, trying to communicate with the victim, defaming the victim's character, spreading rumors, and so on. A recent phenomena called cyber stalking uses social media as a way to frighten and harass victims by sending unwanted emails, ordering goods or services in the names of the victim without his or her immediate knowledge, posting unpleasant material about the victim, or threatening the victim in some way on the internet, thanks to technology. Stalking as a behavior results in the perpetrator turning aggressive. This can range from verbal threats to acid attack to rape and even murder. Psychologically, stalking traumatizes the victims deeply. They are forced to alter their normal routines. They avoid going out alone, give up their leisure activities, change their telephone number or email address, leave behind close friends and relatives, relocate, abandon their educational courses, and sometimes even change their identity. Some effects of stalking are physical effects. Physical effects such as weight changes, loss of appetite, sleep disturbances, headache, nausea, injuries, panic attack. And then there are emotional effects like suicidal thoughts, attempt to suicide, depression, anxiety, confusion, anger, increased distrust, aggression, and paranoia. The next type of crime against women that we will talk about are crimes of honor. It is not uncommon to read newspapers reporting crimes of honor killing, ghastly murders carried out by family members or sometimes the entire village to save their so-called honor. The Manoj Babli honor killing is one such case. Manoj Banwala and Babli, a newlywed couple, was ordered to be killed by the Khap Panchayat, which is a religious-based council among Jats in a village in Haryana in 2007. The reason given was that they were from the same Gotra and therefore siblings, and they were not allowed to marry. Babli's own relatives, including her grandfather, brother, maternal and paternal uncles, and 2 of her own cousins, murdered them. For the first time in the history of the Indian legal system in 2010, the Karnal District Court sentenced the perpetrators to be executed for an honor killing case. The head of the Khap Panchayat was also given a life sentence. So what exactly are these crimes of honor? These are violent crimes, violent acts, usually committed by male family members within a patriarchal setup, committed to repair perceived violations of familial honor, often by killing the woman who has brought shame to family name. Even in today's time, some couples who elope or marry intercaste, interreligion, or from the same gotra as we just saw, are punished and have to pay the price of their lives. The punishment is for 2 westernized women who need to be reminded of their boundaries and definitions of freedom. Killing a woman is purification for the family and a means for gaining respect in the general community. Therefore, any male who is acting for the honor of his family cannot be condemned for upholding the patriarchal system. Paradoxically, other women in the family cover up the crime and help the men in killing their own daughters, sisters, or mothers. Honor killings have been reported not only in developing countries like India, Pakistan, Jordan, Turkey, Iraq, Iran, Bangladesh, Brazil, and Uganda, but also developed countries, yes, developed countries such as United Kingdom, Sweden, Canada, US, and Italy. According to the Honor-Based Violence Awareness Network in 2016, about 5,000 honor killings occur internationally every year. The next ghastly crime against women that we will talk about is acid attacks. These are terrible, terrible acts of violence, non-accidental in nature, which leave the victim with permanent facial scarring, disfigurement, and even blindness. The motive behind the assault is varied. The man could have been refused for romantic advances, social factors, revenge, war. Majority of the victims in such cases are again females. The target body areas include the face, scalp, neck and arms, and sometimes even breasts and genitalia. Acid attacks not only cause irreparable physical harm, but also results in psychological as well as social consequences. Apart from being ridiculed for their appearance and blamed for their condition, they face difficulties in finding work and getting married. As a result, their socio-economic conditions deteriorate. This results in a loss of self-confidence, lowered self-esteem, self-imposed isolation, irritability, anger, depression, and anxiety. One inspiring survivor of an acid attack that you might have heard of is Lakshmi. Lakshmi was only 15 years old in 2005 when she suffered an acid attack at the hands of a 32-year-old man whose advances she refused. This attack disfigured her face, ears, hands, and chest. Doctors had to remove the entire skin from her face and operate 7 surgeries. She is credited for gathering 27,000 signatures for a petition to curb acid sales in India. She now runs an NGO foundation that helps acid attack survivors. She received International Women of Courage Award in 2014 by the then US First Lady, Michelle Obama. She now lives with a fellow activist and is a proud mother to a baby girl. Courageous indeed. The next example of crime against women is sexual violence. According to WHO, sexual violence is an actual sexual act, an attempt to carry out a sexual act, sexual comments, or advances that are unwanted, that could involve trafficking at times, which is forceful in nature. The action is carried out by people irrespective of the relationship they share with the victim, in any setting, including work or home. Sexual violence is a global category that includes, first, rape. The insertion under conditions of force, coercion, or duress of any object, including but not limited to a penis, into a victim's vagina or anus, or the insertion under conditions of force, coercion, or duress of a penis into the mouth of the victim. Although rape is defined in gender-neutral terms, women are more at risk for being victims of sexually violent crimes. Delhi is infamous for being the rape capital of India, irrespective of age or time of day. Cases such as the Maulana Azad Medical College medical student case, called the Khuni Darwaza rape case, which occurred in broad daylight in 2002, the gruesome Nirbhaya gang rape case in a moving bus in the evening in 2012, and a more recent 2014 case where a 27-year-old woman was raped by her Uber driver at night are some of the examples that I'm sure you remember. The second is wartime rape. This is a war tactic by one nation against the other to intimidate the enemy by enslaving and raping women of the opposition group. Rape here becomes an instrument of terror, domination, political repression, torture, and humiliation. Third, sexual torture. This is sexual abuse by an intimate partner that can involve sexual coercion, but no physical violence. Fourth, sexual mutilation. These are procedures involving partial or total removal of genitalia or other injury to genital organs for non-medical reasons. Fifth, sexual slavery. Here, a person is confined, raped, sexually abused, or forced to work as a prostitute. You might have heard of Taliban child brides and widows who are trapped as sex slaves. Sixth, enforced prostitution. Prostitution forced through violence, manipulation, or threat of violence, which results in exploitation and human rights violation. Seventh, enforced sterilization. Sterilization in the absence of prior, free and informed consent of the individual. Eighth, forced pregnancy. Unlawful confinement of a woman forcibly impregnated in order to modify the ethnic composition of the population. This is not just a war crime, but also a crime against humanity. In addition, sexual harassment, especially at the workplace, is another crime that women and sometimes men are also subjected to. According to the Supreme Court of India in 1997, sexual harassment includes physical contact or advances, demand or request for sexual favors, sexually colored remarks, showing pornographic material, unwelcome physical, verbal, non-verbal sexual conduct. Let me now draw your attention to some myths versus facts about rape. Myth 1. The victim must have asked for it. She was seductive, careless, drunk, high, whatever. The fact is, nobody asks to be abused, injured, or humiliated. No one can cause an offender to commit a crime against them. Myth 2. If the victim did not physically struggle with or fight the assailant, it wasn't really rape. The fact is, a freeze response is a normal response to trauma. This renders a victim unable to physically fight back. Many victims also do not fight back because they are threatened or manipulated and feel compelled to cooperate. Sometimes alcohol and other drugs are also used to incapacitate the victims. Myth 3. Most perpetrators are strangers to the victim. The fact is, most rapes are committed by someone that the victim knows. He could be a neighbor, a friend, an acquaintance, a co-worker, classmate, spouse, partner, or an ex-partner. Myth 4. Rape is caused by the perpetrator's uncontrollable sexual urges. The fact is, rape is an act of power and control. Perpetrators are fully able to control their sexual urges, as evidenced by the fact that the majority of individuals do not rape despite their sexual urges. Myth 5. Individuals who commit rape are mentally ill and are incapable of helping themselves and therefore commit violence under irrational conditions. The fact is, very few perpetrators are mentally incompetent or out of touch with reality. Mentally ill people are more likely to be victims of crime than to perpetrate it. The sixth crime that we will talk about is a privacy-related sex crime called voyeurism. Let me share a case with you. A 30-year-old man was arrested after he was charged for video voyeurism as he held his cell phone over a wall while a woman was getting dressed at a gym. The man admitted to the offense, citing temptation as the reason. A sex crime, voyeurism, has a sexual purpose or motive or visual observation or recording of some state of nudity. Although a psychosexual disorder, the victims are unsuspecting individuals who might be undressing or engaging in sexual acts which provide sexual excitement to the voyeur. More commonly, the victims are females, but at times, men have also been victimized. Gender-related crimes are not restricted to the two mainstream genders, men and women. The LGBT community is also not spared of such violence. Lesbians, gays, bisexuals, transgenders, and queers. According to the Daily Observer, 19 July 2017, a lesbian woman in Liberia was attacked because she lived openly as a gay. Her neighbors were reportedly not comfortable with her physical appearance and masculinity. Crimes against LGBTQ persons include murder, assaults, intimidations, and forcible and so-called corrective rapes, as if rapes are going to correct them of their sexual identity. Crimes against their property include robbery, burglary, theft, destruction, damages, or vandalism. Such histories of sexual trauma are associated with substance use, suicide attempt, and high-risk sexual activities, along with other psychological disturbances in the victims who are scarred for life. Let us now turn our attention to violence against men. As we just discussed, usually domestic violence entails violent actions of men against women. However, the seriousness of violence of women against men has largely been ignored. This is because of the asymmetrical nature of such violence. A violent action by a female against a male does not lead to the same level of serious injuries as it would in the opposite scenario. Sexual coercion against males could occur in a variety of places, including home, the workplace, schools, street, military, during wars, prison, and police custody. Incidences of forced sex among prison inmates in order to reinforce the hierarchies of respect and discipline, entertainment, as well as a form of punishment for those who are transgressing social norms is quite common. I'm sure you've heard of such cases. It may surprise you to know that any man can be sexually assaulted regardless of his size, strength, appearance, or sexual orientation. Most men who sexually assault other men are actually heterosexuals, not homosexual. Male rapes tend to be underreported because of the associated guilt, shame, and fear of being ridiculed, not being believed, being denounced for the incidents, and myths and prejudices surrounding male sexuality. Similar to the females, male victims also experience guilt, anger, anxiety, depression, sometimes post-traumatic stress disorder, sexual dysfunctions, somatic complaints, sleep disturbances, social withdrawals, and suicidal ideation. Substance abuse, violent behavior, stealing, and absenteeism from school or workplace are quite common. Let us now try to explore some causes of this gendered violence. Eve-teasing, molestation or harassment on the streets or the workplace, dowry-related harassment, rapes, these are all reflection of the deep-seated problem in the status of women in our society. The two main causes of such crimes are, first, the patriarchal system. The societal notions of ownership over a female's body, sexuality, labor, reproductive rights, mobility, and autonomy is the deep-rooted cause of violence against women. Women are subjugated to boost the self-esteem and status of their fathers, brothers, and sons. Women are blamed for crimes against them, like dressing up provocatively, being out late at night, behaving in suggestive ways, and alcohol use. You may have watched the movie Pink that deals with this aspect. Second reason is the portrayal of women in media. It is ironic that while kissing is not permitted in movies, rapes are a recurrent theme. The presence and acceptance of violence against women is pervasive. Women are objectified in songs to add to the glamour element, and the heroine is often a damsel in distress who has to be saved by the super powerful and the very, very dynamic hero. Simply condemning the crimes is not sufficient. Specific strategies need to be developed to prevent and to deal with the occurrence of such incidences. Let us now try to look at some intervention measures. First, we must first try to raise awareness. I am referring to the long-term goal of modifying the existing attitudes about the role and status of men and women. This can be accomplished through education that will challenge prejudices which hinder women's equality and also empower women by educating them about their rights and what they can do. The second measure is to educate the judiciary. Awareness among judges about the background of cultural influences on gender-based violence can shift societal attitudes by legally condemning abusive behavior. Gender sensitization training to the judges can help them deal with the cases impartially. The third step is educating the police. The police also needs to be taught sensitive and positive ways of responding to a female's appeal for help. Women's problems have to be taken seriously and not as frivolous domestic affairs. The next is legislation. Laws and policies need to be in place and well executed in order to combat gender-based violence. The last and perhaps the most important is the role of the media. A more socially conscious and less sensational way of reporting incidences is the responsibility of the media. A balance needs to be maintained between underreporting and overreporting, as media really has the power to bring about social understanding and acceptance. Let us now summarize what we have learned in this module. Both males and females are victims of violence, while women are the ones who are suffering silently in the society. The victimization of men cannot be ignored completely. Various forms of crime usually perpetrated against women include domestic violence, stalking, crimes of honor, acid attacks, and sexual violence. The reason continues to be the patriarchal society, where men use violent means to gain control, while the women remain silent. The coming out of the LGBTQ community is a huge challenge, as they are not only excluded from the society, but also experience the aggressive outbursts of the mainstream culture. It is important that apart from media and the legal system, as educated professionals and activists in the field, we try to inculcate gender equality values in our family members, especially our children, and actualize the dream for a more inclusive society. What we have learned in this module can change policy as we move forward. Thank you.